Hi and welcome to today's class on IBPS English. We will be looking at cloze passages today. So, goals for the class is cloze test. We'll start with the previous session's CPP question. Yesterday we had phrase one-word substitution, where we were looking to replace a particular phrase with one word. Okay, so the CPP was also on that. Look at this. A person having sophisticated charm. You are just looking for the dictionary meaning. Okay, so debonair means exactly that, someone who has a lot of sophisticated charm. Okay, let's also look at these. Destitute is someone who is helpless. Etruscan, from someone from Etrusca. Then of course, obviously it is not these two. Okay. All right, so today's book suggestion is The Kite Runner, and it's from one of my most favorite authors, Khalid Hosseini. Hosseini is an Afghan person who entered the US as a refugee. Okay, so most of the story, this and his successive stories, are based on his own life, his own struggles. Okay, so you will find that he empathizes with his characters a lot, because most of his stories are based on his real life experiences. Okay, so The Kite Runner is extremely sensitive. You can see that it is when the setting is about two very young boys. Okay, two kids who grow up together. There is a social hierarchical difference between the two boys, and then we come to realize that there is actually some bond between them. Something is broken. Okay, so on and so forth. Today, when section 377 has been decriminalized, you'll definitely have to pick this book and start reading it. You will be extremely happy to read this. Okay, so that is about Khalid Hosseini's Kite Runner. By the way, I just wanted to say something about this book. If you feel that life is beautiful, life is great and all that, and then you always fear that it is all going to fall apart, this book is something that deals with some such thing. Okay, it's very reassuring to see the narrator go through his ups, and then his downs are horrible, and then how he rises above, so on and so forth. Okay, all right, so that's it about Kite Runner. We come to our cloze test. Okay, now what is cloze test? A cloze test is nothing but a passage with a few blanks. Okay, so you read the passage and you figure out what fills those blanks. It's nothing but a very simple fill up the blank. Okay, your basic fill up the blank deals with just one sentence or a couple or three sentences at once, but the cloze test is something that has one whole paragraph. Okay, so this is your cloze test. It has one whole paragraph with blanks. Okay, so these blanks are numbered 1, 2, 3. Okay, and it is your job to fill these blanks with the given options. So for example, for 1 you have these options. Sorry about that. Okay, so these are your options for 1. Look at this. How do you go about with a cloze test? Read the passage at once, one whole passage at one shot, so that you have a basic idea of what the context is. Because if you read the entire passage, only then would you have an idea about what goes into 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so for example, what goes into 1 might be very dependent on, say, some stuff here that actually happens later on. Okay, so that is very important. You need to have a whole picture in your mind before you start with your close test. Okay, so give it a read. Now look at this. The national media has never been a blank. For every blank news portal, there has been a blank sensationalist tabloid as a blah blah. Earlier, the sensationalists were kept under blank. There was some form of a social blank. There was an blank firewall that blank again these two universes. However, in the last 5 to 6 years, this firewall seems to have lost its disinformation is blank into credible sections of the media because of the dash of disinformation happens to be our own leaders. This poses a dash question about the nature of reporting. Dash reporting means reporting what was said, but if statements themselves are wrong, do reporters blank about them or not? Wouldn't not reporting blank to censorship? Okay, so you have a fair idea about what the passage is. It's about sensationalizing news. Okay, so there are two schools of thought here, and while one seems to be reporting what actually happens, the other and the undesirable one is all about sensationalizing news. That's it. Okay, so we go on to figure out what happens with your options. Now, the national media has never been a dash. So I'm looking for a noun here, and that's very evident. Okay, so you compare national media with something. That something is a noun. It cannot be an adjective or an adverb. What do I do first? Eliminate the adjectives. Enormous is an adjective. Monolith, it's a noun. We'll come back to that later. Burden is a noun. Mammoth. Now remember that mammoth is a very interesting word. Mammoth is actually a prehistoric animal that was extremely large. Okay, for example, I believe that in the Ice Age series, you see mammoths. Okay, the Ice Age movie series, you actually see mammoth, the animal. But today, when you use mammoth, it is more so as an adjective. And what does the adjective mean? Any idea? By the way, anyone here, if you are watching it, I would love to, say hi to you. You can say the same. Make use of the commenting forum. Please say hi. Good morning, by the way. Okay. So mammoth means big, enormous and big. Typically, the mammoth means the same here as well. Then there is bugbear. Okay. Now, what is the meaning of monolith? Mono means one. Okay. Have you ever been to the archaeological wonders in Mahabalipuram? Monolithic rocks. Okay, so these are gigantic structures carved out of one single rock. Okay, so a monolith is one entity. Okay, the national media has never been uniform. That's what you mean when you say monolith. Okay, so the answer here is monolith. Burden, definitely not. It doesn't fit the context here. Okay, so the first one answer would be C. Let's move to the next. For every dash news outlet, there has been a blah 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 sensational tabloid. So we are looking at some form of contrast here, correct? So for something that is very believable, something that is good, there is an opposite. That's the entire, that's the import of this particular sentence, correct? So I'm looking for something that means believable, okay? Controversial, that's the opposite of the word that I'm looking for, but controversial is what would fit in here. So when I come to the third option, I would be looking for something that means controversial, okay? Imaginary, definitely not, it doesn't fit the context here. Bogus is fraudulent, okay? So that again is the opposite of what I'm looking for. Credulous. Now, in vocabulary classes, time and again I've told you that cred is the root word for faith, belief. Okay, so Credible means believable. That is something that would go in here, okay. And credulous means someone who a credulous person is someone who will just believe anything that he hears or sees, okay. So someone who is very innocent, that is credulous. That's not the word that I'm looking for. Genuine, on the other hand, fits in perfectly. So for this blank, genuine is the answer. For every genuine news outlet, there has been a dash sensational tabloid. What's a tabloid, by the way? A tabloid is a newspaper that kind of focuses on page 3 news. Okay, so gossip and such stuff. It's not exactly what you would call a newspaper of substance. So, alternate, a dash sensationalist tabloid. Alternate, similarity. Now I'm looking for an adjective here, okay. Sensationalist tabloid, something that describes tabloid. Similarity happens to be a noun, so I eliminate. Alternate, by the way, is an adjective. Emulated. Emulated is a verb. It can also act as an adjective, but that's not the word that we are looking for. What is simulate, emulate? Okay, what is a simulated system? Let's say you are learning to fly a flight, an aeroplane. Obviously, you don't get to start flying a real aeroplane in the first try, okay. So there are simulated systems on the ground that pilots use to actually study their course, okay. So now you understand what simulation means, correct? Emulate is when you simulate emotions, okay. So that is not what you're looking for here. Corresponding. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. A corresponding reaction for every action. That's the word that I'm looking for. For every credible news agency, there is also, a completely, what do you call, useless news agency, a tabloid of sorts. Okay, so that's the corresponding alternative. D is your option. Opposite contextually doesn't fit in, although meaning wise that's what you're looking for. Okay, there has been a corresponding sensational tabloid as a dash. So what exactly is the relationship between the credible, genuine news source and the sensationalist news source? There is a contrast, correct? So we are looking for a word that means contrast. Contrary. Now remember, we are looking for a noun as a blah blah, correct? So we are looking for a noun and not an adjective. So contrary is an adjective, I eliminate. Counter stroke. Typically in tennis, you play a stroke and a counter stroke. So that's a very contextual term. Counterpoint. Okay, so that is exactly what you're looking for, a counterpoint. It means a contrasting element. And in this particular context, counterpoint is what fits in. Stroke and counter stroke, typically you keep it within the sports arena. Okay. Conundrum is some sort of a confusion, trouble arising from confusion. Okay. So counterpoint is what you're looking for. Now, coming to enigma. Enigma means someone who is very hard to understand, or someone you cannot just understand at all. Do you know the origin of the word enigma? It was, okay, during the World Wars, the Germans used a system to encode and decode their messages, okay, and that system was called enigma. It was very hard to decipher, okay. So from then you realize that enigma has been associated with anyone who's extremely hard to decipher, okay. You can probably say the actress does not give many interviews. She has been an enigma of sorts. She is a social recluse, What's a recluse, by the way? Someone who does not enjoy socializing. Okay? So the answer to this question would be C, counterpoint. Now, but the sensationalists were kept under dash. So you're talking about the past here. Okay? So earlier there was some form of control mechanism. There was some form of a social blank. I'm looking for a word that is close to controlling mechanism, and we have control right here. Okay, so the controlling mechanism was able to cap whatever the sensationalist news agencies did, and this was in the past. Okay, so control is what you're looking for. Attention, prevention, pressure and compulsion. I believe that you would already know the meanings of these words, so we can just move on. We come to the Cantus question. Yesterday I picked the question from pop culture, okay, in hopes that you would get it right. There was someone who answered this, but he got it wrong. Okay, so he said podcast was the answer, but no. Let's look into the question. Friends is an iconic dash about 6 friends in New York City. The show, this is very important, okay, this is the clue. The show is a favorite among several generations of TV watchers. Friends and Seinfeld are 2 brilliant American TV shows that cater to a pan-global audience. Okay, now whatever, now look at this, these are very important. I said the show and TV shows. Okay, portmanteau means putting 2 words together to come up with a different word. Okay, the resulting word is adjunct in meaning to the words that are being used to form the resulting word. That is not the contextual equivalent that you're looking for here. Edutainment. What is edutainment? It is education and entertainment. Together they form the portmanteau word edutainment. Okay, so there is nothing about education mentioned here. It's about 6 friends in their lives. So you can rest assured that it has nothing to do with education. Sitcom. Sitcom is nothing but situational comedy. Sitcom. Yes, in reality, Friends is a sitcom. Seinfeld again is a sitcom. Situational comedy. Okay. Podcast, I told you it has to be specific. Okay. iPod plus broadcast. So you get podcast. Okay. So that's the portmanteau word. The correct answer here is C, sitcom. Okay. Friends is a sitcom. So C is the answer. No one got it right, unfortunately. All right, Cantus question. Good luck. Go ahead. Question number 6 in the same Cloze test passage. Now look at this. They were kept under control. There was some form of a social we are looking at a control mechanism, correct? A social. Now look at this: compel, refrain, leash, abstain and fasten. Now here again a social something. I am looking for a noun here. So the first thing that I do is eliminate the non-nouns. Compel is a verb, refrain is a verb, leash is a noun, abstain is a verb, fasten again is a verb. Okay, so the answer here is very easy, a social leash. Okay, so C is your answer. Now coming to meaning, what is the meaning of abstain or abstinence? To avoid, to keep away from. He abstains from alcohol. Okay, so he stays away from alcohol. Fasten, to ensure that things are fastened, stiff, held together. Then we come to 7. There was an dash firewall that dash these two universes. So we are looking for a divisive structure. Okay, so there was a invisible, palpable, visible, invisible, palpable, tangible, restricted. Okay, now when you talk about palpable, it means something that can be felt. Okay, so hey, I have some pain on my wrist, but I feel nothing palpable here, meaning there is nothing that can be felt, touched. Okay, tangible again means almost the same. Okay, so it's something that can be seen, felt, sensed. Okay, her tangible assets are worth 10 crore rupees. Okay, so meaning this is what she has in hand, like in real, for real. Restricted, you obviously know the meaning, to cut short. Visible, and then there is invisible. So when you're looking for a firewall, there is no visible, there is no palpable, tangible firewall that keeps these two universes away from each other, but it's invisible. Okay, so here you have invisible. Okay, so there was an invisible firewall that dash these two universes. So I'm looking for division. Okay, annex, kept away, apart, separated, combined. So kept away and separated mean the same. Apart also means the same. Okay, combine is the opposite, that's not what you're looking for. Annex again means the same. Okay, now look at this, that dash these two universes. Separated, because here only a verb would fit in. Okay, so something that separated these two universes, we are looking for a verb, and that is separated. If you have kept away here, a firewall that kept away these two universes, it doesn't fit in there. Okay, so you're looking for a specific verb, and that verb is separated. Then, however, in the last 5 to 6 years, so however is a contrast indicator. Whatever is spoken here, there is a contrasting element happening in the next sentence. However, in the last 5 to 6 years, this firewall seems to have lost its dash. Disinformation is blah blah blah. Okay, so I am looking for a word that means, look at this, right disinformation. Okay, lost its right, charge, capacity, caliber, power. Okay, now what is the meaning? Rahul Bajpai, what's this class standard stud? I'm sorry, I don't quite understand what you're trying to say, Rahul Bajpai. Time? So if you can just comment again and tell me what exactly your question is, I can probably give you an answer. Okay, so hi Rahul, by the way, good morning, welcome to our class. All right, so lost its dash disinformation is dash into credible sections of the media. Okay, so lost its capacity in disinformation, charge disinformation, right disinformation, and then caliber power. Okay, here I'm looking for something that means lost its power, but can I use power there? Yes, Rahul? Rahul, by the way, I'm still waiting for your question. Could you probably, just rephrase your question? I'm unable to understand what you're trying to ask. So look at this, lost its, if I substitute right here, okay, this, however, in the last 5 to 6 years, this firewall seems to have lost its right disinformation is dash into credible sections. Now this is slightly dicey, okay, so what you can do is see the next blank, fill that first and then come back here, okay, and that's what we're doing. Disinformation is dash into credible sections of the media, okay, venting, flowing, seeping, penetrate, falling, okay. Now you have is here, so I'm looking for an ing word here. I eliminate penetrate, okay. So venting, flowing, seeping, falling. Now we are looking at information, correct? It is after all about news agencies, right? So flowing and seeping make better sense than falling. Am I right there? Okay. So seeping is a better bet here. So I go with seeping into credible sections of the media because the dash of information happens to be our own leaders. 11, resource, source, area, section and way. Source of information. Our leaders are the ones giving misinformation, okay, and they are the source, not the resource. This one is quite obvious. Now we go back to, okay, so right makes sense here, okay. The firewall seems to have lost its, I'm sorry, not right, power, okay. So the firewall has lost its power. Earlier there was an invisible firewall that was keeping the two sections of the media, the genuine and the tabloid, away from each other, okay. So the news seeker could seek either the, the genuine portal, or he knew exactly what the tabloid was, okay. But now that firewall seems to have broken down because our leaders are the source of genuine information and the not so genuine information, okay. Now this poses a dash question. Here again I'm looking for an adjective. So there is difficult, chaotic, roaring, okay. These are my adjectives. Complexity and conundrum happen to be nouns, okay. So this poses a difficult question, chaotic question, roaring question. It's obvious, difficult is the answer here. You don't have a roaring question, you don't have a chaotic question. What is chaos? Chaos has its roots in Chaos, German word. I studied German, which is probably why in my class you would find that I tend to compare English and German a lot, okay. So chaos, that gives rise to chaos, okay. Chaos means complete, pandemonium, confusion, that is chaos, okay. So ever heard of the chaos theory? The butterfly effect? Have you watched the movie The Butterfly Effect? Anyhow, so that's a good movie suggestion, so you can probably watch it. Anyhow, coming back to the butterfly effect, it it is this theory that the flap of a butterfly's wings, okay, so that sets across a motion, a series of incidents that ends in a disaster. Okay, so that's the butterfly effects. Okay, or in other words, the chaos theory. Nevertheless, coming back to this, the answer is difficult, not chaotic, not roaring. The other adjectives, these two are nouns, so they aren't contenders for this blank. Okay. This poses a difficult question about the nature of reporting. Then you have question number 13. Dash reporting means reporting what was said. So I am again looking for a descriptive word. Okay, so something that describes reporting, an adjective, bogus, bona fide, truthful, faithful, and counterfeit. Now here I want you to do something. Dash reporting means reporting what was said. So whatever I am highlighting here, that is what should fill the blank at 13, correct? Reporting what was said. So something genuine, something real. Okay, I'm looking for a positive word here, correct? Now look at your options, eliminate all the negative words. Bogus is definitely negative. What is bogus? We've already seen this, by the way. Fraud. Okay, bogus means fraudulent. Okay, then bona fide and truthful are positive and they mean almost the same. Faithful again is positive, they mean almost the same. Counterfeit is nothing but bogus. Okay, they mean the same, fraudulent. Dash reporting, so you have bona fide reporting, truthful reporting, faithful reporting. The contextual term, even though all of them mean the same, the contextual term is bona fide. Now coming to the phrase bona fide. Okay, born, ben, born are the root words for good, from which you get benevolent, bon voyage, benign, okay, benefit, benefactor. So bona is good. Fide is the root word for trust or faith. Okay, so this Latin phrase means in good faith. Okay, any other words that you know with the root word fidelity? FID, there is fidelity, and then there is infidel, which means someone who has broken your faith, your trust. Okay, so B is the answer here. Next, but if statements themselves are wrong, do reporters dash about them or not? So it's clear that I'm looking for a verb here. Okay, display, paint, print, encrypt, and write, all of them are verbs. So it makes your job a little tougher because you don't have adjectives and nouns that you can, eliminate right away. Okay, now look at this. But if statements are wrong, do reporters report about them or not? That's okay. I'm looking for something that means report, correct? Paint, print, encrypt, write, or display. Now I am looking at print and write. Okay, now when you talk of print, you talk only about the print media, correct? But when I look at write, it is a more encompassing idea. Okay, so if a reporter writes, it can be printed, it can be said. Okay, so that is more likely here. But if statements themselves are wrong, do reporters write about them or not? Something else, you can also claim that it's not the reporter's job to print something, they only write. It is printed by the tech people. Okay, so that is one way of looking at it. Okay, but it's definitely not display, paint, encrypt. What is the meaning of encrypt, by the way? Crypt is the root word of coding, okay, writing in some sort, from which you get, it's actually from this root word, okay, crypt comes from that. Encrypt is to encode. You write some information in a very secretive fashion, that is crypt, okay, so that is encrypt. You have prescription, you have script, you have proscribe, circumscribe. Circumscribe is to write around, then anything else, script, you know, written form, prescription, what your doctor writes to you, and then you come to question number 15. Wouldn't not reporting dash to censorship? Okay, so the word, see, it's a very obvious thing here. Okay, so the phrase that we are looking for, wouldn't that report to something? Okay, wouldn't that report, wouldn't not reporting dash to censorship? It would be amount to censorship, meaning it would result in not writing at all, it would result in censoring information. So when you are in the media, it is your job to give people news, okay. So just because I am not sure about whether it's right or wrong, I cannot say I will not give you the news, because it would amount to censorship, okay. So the correct answer here is amount. Let's also look at the other options. Quantify, qualify. Quantify, how many apples do you have? I have 3. Qualify, yeah, I have a lot, you know, a lot many apples. So that is qualifying. Qualify is, you know, you describe. Quantify, you give a numerical quantified answer, that is quantify. Accumulate, what is accumulate? To amass, okay. So accumulation, that's the root word here, okay. Accumulate, cumulative. Collect, of course, that's pretty simple and you know already, okay. So this gives you an idea of how to go about with cloze passages, correct? Cloze passages involve a decent vocabulary, reading skills, and some common sense and reasoning, okay. How do you go about with cloze passages? We are summarizing that, okay. We are just done with one question of cloze test. So you need a decent vocabulary, otherwise you're just lost here, like completely lost. So remember to read a lot, build a vocabulary, that's like utmost importance, okay. Then you need to have a whole picture before you start answering your questions. So before you start answering questions, I would strongly recommend that you read the entire passage in one go. Now, don't overdo it. Do not, you know, read the passage again and again, try to figure out what, where and all that. No, you do not have that kind of time in your IBPS examination. Remember, the time management is extremely important. You're racing against time to do as many questions right as possible, right? So read it once, get the complete picture, come back to question 1, start off, okay. And reasoning, this is what will help you. See, it's not just these two. Without reasoning skills, these two are completely lost, okay. So remember to ask yourself before you, you know, plug the gap, plug the blank with a word, does this make any sense, okay. So your common sense will answer that question, and if your common sense says yes, go ahead, go ahead. Otherwise, think twice, okay. That is probably not your answer, okay. Then once you're done, you wouldn't have much time to recheck, okay. It is probably worth a try. See, when you are doing your practice exercises, read it once again, see if it makes sense, okay. And context is extremely important when it comes to cloze passage. So, we come to the close of this class, CPP time. Now, the CPP or the class practice pack is a set of 10 expertly curated questions. Okay. So, the CPP will be your practice. Whatever we've discussed in class, whatever concepts we've discussed in class, whatever practice questions we've done in class, it is all reflected in your CPP question paper. It's a set of 10 questions that will help you fine-tune the skills that you've developed in your class. Okay, so without the CPP, you're probably losing a lot without doing the CPP. The CPP is open only to Passport members. So Passport members, just right after class, finish the CPP and then have a brilliant weekend. You can also, of course, share your CPP with others, help them out as well. Okay, so see you then. Have a brilliant Saturday and Sunday. Enjoy your weekend. Bye.